Okay, bear with me for a while I fumble through this. I haven't done it in a while, and I certainly haven't planned this video. Suffice to say, you are going to need the Artemis ship editor tool, which is available at these links, which I will hopefully include in the description of the video for your convenience. So you're going to need these. This is the broad downloads for Artemis, and this lower one will get you the ship editor tool, obviously, directly. Once you have acquired that, first thing you are going to want to do is launch the Artemis ship editor tool. You will notice I am launching this from a wineskin because I'm operating under macOS. If you're running Windows, this will not be a problem for you. Well, this is what it looks like when you first load up. You'll notice it will load a randomized DXS mesh. I don't know where it gets its pieces from, but it'll randomize this all the time. Navigating around this application is a little clunky. In my case, because you have asked me to furnish you some warp-capable civilian vessels, the first thing I'm going to need to do is go over to Load Save here at the top. And before you load any internals, the internal systems here, which relates to the SNT file, you want to load the corresponding, if available, DXS file. I have found that it likes to crash if I go straight to the SNT. So we're going to load a DXS. I created this folder specifically for this project, so it would be easy to access. We're going to start with the cargo vessel. So you can see the untextured cargo vessel mesh DXS there. Then we pop over to internals, and we're going to load my previously existing internal system from the SNT file I previously created. That's going to kick us right into the internal view. You can turn this on and off by clicking on the Edit Internal System. And you will notice, of course, rather quickly, that the damn thing is spinning around. Clicking, and dragging has no effect on this whatsoever. And it's not actually documented on the screen up here in the top right how to get it to stop spinning. Here's the answer. Press your arrow keys. Just press an arrow key, any arrow key, and then you can use your arrow keys to change the orientation however you wish. Now the next problem you might run into is, gee, this is awfully too far zoomed out to contend with right now. And there doesn't seem to be a way to change that once again on screen. What the hell, Tom? So actually the way you fix that is you go over into the Load Save section where you loaded the DXS, and you have the camera distance slider right here. You can zoom way out or way in. So you'll find yourself a happy medium. Why am I being pinged over here? There's no one of consequence. So, in my loaded SNT, you can mouse over these coordinates, and you will see that I have already added impulse nodes, rear shield nodes. Whoa, it's a little jittery. Maneuver nodes. Up here we've got more maneuver. We've got tactical nodes. Now this is important to know. The tactical node is not in fact tactical. The tactical node is in fact your sensor node. And I will provide some documentation for the nodes later on, I guess. But as you can see, I have some notes in here. It does not actually designate in here how to put nodes in. What a surprise! No documentation. And The way you do that, in fact, is you mouse over the location on the grid, and you press a number key corresponding to which kind of node you want to add. So the 1 key will give you the torpedo node. Uh-oh, I added a node in error. Fuck, how do I take that node away? Fortunately, this is actually documented at the top right. Space removes a system from the hovered grid point. So we can just remove that. And of course, there are a number of node types. So the torpedo, the tactical, which is really sensors, the maneuver, impulse. Did I skip over one? I did not. Okay. So warp, front shield, rear shield. And then there is the mystery alpha node, the mystery bravo node, and then lastly the primary beam node. So let me actually dig up my notes, because this is kind of important. Where did I put my notes? Here we go. Right, so I have confirmed the following behaviors with regards to S&T behavior. So beams don't need primary beam node to operate. No nodes, no overheating. Same probably applies for all other non-warp systems. I have not actually tested, but it is probable. So you can actually create a ship with no primary beam nodes and give it a ton of beams, crank those beams to 300%, and they'll never overheat, and they can't be damaged by taking fire after the shields drop. So your beams will just always function, and there's no reason not to run them at 300%, and except maybe for energy's sake. The other thing I confirmed is that removing warp subsystems from the S&T renders any ship using that S&T file warp inactive. Warp and jump just won't work. It won't do anything. The mystery nodes, the B nodes, seem to cause client crashes. The A nodes don't appear to do anything at all. They don't appear on the engineering display, and they seem to have no function, so far as I can tell. Anything else worthwhile in here? Now, I thought I had... Oh, I did. If you take this a little out of context, these numbers actually relate to the key you press to add them to the mesh. Or not the mesh, to the wireframe. So 1 relates to torpedoes, 2 relates to sensors, 3 relates to maneuver, 4 relates to impulse, 5 relates to warp, 6 relates to front shield, 7 to rear shield, 8 to A, 9 to B for crashy node, and 0 to the primary beam. That's enough from that. So moving on, you asked me to add some warp nodes to this thing. So I'm going to think for a moment and decide where to put those warp nodes. I already put the impulse nodes at kind of the ideal location. Why, let's just cobble in a couple of warp nodes right here and right here. It's right in front of the impulse manifold, and still vulnerable to aft shooting. It's not fancy, it's not great, but I'm not going to put way too much thought into this. It just seems a reasonable place. This is where it is. It doesn't have warp nacelles, otherwise I would put them in the warp nacelles. Anyway, so that's going to conclude our editing here. You asked for only 2 warp nodes. So now that we've done that, we're going to go over here to Save Int System. And it's going to ask you for a file name to save it as. And I'm going to name this Warp Cargo Vessel. I can see what I'm typing. And I believe it should tag on the S and T on its own. And for some reason, instead of the dialog saying save, it says open. I don't understand, but that's the way it is. So you click open to save. So there's that. And then we have a few more ships to go through. I suppose that ends the kind of tutorial session, but I'm just going to blast through this on video for the hell of it. So as before, I'm just going to load the DXS first. We'll go with the luxury vessel this time. You'll notice nothing has changed on the screen. Don't panic. That's just because we're still editing the internal system. So then we're going to go over to the internals and we will load the internal system. We're working on luxury now. So there we go. Where is your impulse? Impulse, impulse, impulse. You have a lot of impulse nodes. What are these back here? Maneuver nodes. That's all right. So we'll tag on a couple of warp nodes up at the corners. No big deal. And we will save that. Next stop, the science vessel. Okay, so what I've done, you'll notice that we're still looking at the silhouette of a luxury thing, despite having loaded the science vessel DXS. Way to fix that, I think, we'll find out, is to turn off the edit int system and back on again. Hooray! I'm not wrong on video. Ain't that nice? Now, the science ship is really freaking tiny. And I don't like that. I'm going to try to go over here and increase my camera zoom. That's... whoops. My click got stuck. There. So, the warp ship, the impulse version of the science vessel only has 2 impulse nodes. I gave it like 9 sensor nodes. That might be a little excessive. What I'm going to do here is I think I'm going to add an extra impulse node in the midship. That's not it. There we go. And I'm going to put the warp node at the rearmost thing, replacing a previous impulse node. Yeah. And then we'll save that out. Yeah. Next up we had a transport vessel, yes. Whoa, we are way zoomed in. Way zoomed in. Oh, that's more comfortable. As you can see, these civilian ships, or at least the cargo transports, they're huge. Huge. So I gave this thing 4 impulse nodes, that's not bad. I'm going to strip it of this rear shield node and put that up here. And then I'll add just a couple warp nodes right there. Make sure that's in the middle. Yeah. Now there's one more thing that I can think of to add here. I will actually point out... Okay, so a couple things. There is this selection here of bilateral edit. And this is a wonderful thing when you have a symmetrical grid, because it allows you to keep your eye on the center line amidships here. It allows you to add nodes symmetrically at a single hit. So let's add some primary beams amidships. See how the The nodes appear and disappear on both the left and right of the ship. You can actually probably make that a more true left-right by changing the, yeah. So there you go. Primary beam left, primary beam right, clear one on the right, clear the one on the left. So bilateral edit will be your friend on symmetrical things. Now the other scarier and more intimidating thing is show all open. All these little yellow dots, those are all of the potential nodes that you could employ, theoretically. Now, obviously, you don't want your S&T grid to exceed the mesh of your ship, which is why the blue thing is here for reference. However, what you can do, and I'll load something else just so I don't screw this up. So yeah, as I was saying, what you can do is, let's see, how do you actually do this? Do I need to hit space? Yeah. So I can activate one of these yellow unused nodes by hitting the space bar while hovering over it. And right now it's unconnected. And you can't actually connect it directly to any old node you want. It doesn't work that way. You have to employ adjacent nodes. So we've got this impulse node here at X-ray 4, Yankee 3, Zulu 3. We can't actually create a linkage with our left click. We need to also open up this node either over the, whatever the node was, over the impulse node to create our linkage, and you'll see it automatically links. Or there we go. It is shift right click to close a node that you have opened. Just incidentally, shift right click. So yeah, adjacent nodes. So we can open that one, and then we can string it all back like so. And once you've done some nonsense like this, you can actually click and drag the activated node into the blueness. I don't quite remember how to do this. Control. It says it right here. Hold control to drag points around. So we'll hold our control, and we can just kind of drag this willy-nilly all over the ship. It's not the greatest thing to do. It's easy to get confused and crisscross things, but you can totally do that. That is how I constructed the S&T file for the Kestrel in BenzMod. I just grabbed the closest nodes and I just kind of dragged them into the blue freehand. And I believe, I could be wrong, that bilateral edit, yes, bilateral edit will assist you in your making symmetrical adjustments of that sort. So there's that. That's pretty much all the things you can do that I can think of. What's info here say? I'll just leave that there for a moment for the sake of it being on the video. I'm not going to bother reading it or analyzing what it is. Now, the last thing you can do here, and I have not found any great uses for this yet, though this may have a great deal to do with not having any texturing capability. What you can do is go over here to the Gen Ship section and just generate ships at random. It has a bunch of pre-existing components from which to choose. You can you have a slider for ship length, and a slider for ship complexity. So you can make some monsters with a bunch of polys. Or you can make things really, whoops, my mouse got stuck, really simple. Oh, that's the ship length. I want the camera distance. There. Really simple. Very few polys. So you can get some simple enough hulls out of this if you need some throwaway ships or some such, or you don't really care about the quality of your DXS. The real trick is, can you texture the damn thing? Which I personally cannot. And yeah, with that, I think that actually concludes everything I know about the process and how it's going to work. Yeah, so I'm going to close this down. Happy modding. Good luck.